Today we have joining me Patty Ramos, our school business administrator, who will be co-presenting. But we also have with their Board of Education hats, Layla Morelli and Sonal Patel. Sonal Patel and Layla are both teachers in their respective school districts, but they are serving as members of the Board of Education here in Westfield, who have worked collaboratively and cooperatively with us to put together the budget that we are going to present this afternoon. So I want to thank them and give everyone on the panel an opportunity to always chime in during my presentation or Patty's portion with any additional comments or clarifications that you see necessary. So I'm going to share my screen now, and from there, jump right into the presentation. Okay, so our presentation, as you can see in the outline, is pretty comprehensive. It provides details regarding what we have in store for you this afternoon. So rather than read through it, we'll just jump right into it. We always start our presentation, since I've been here, with just a historical overview of how we got to where we are today. You've seen this before if you've watched any of our presentations over the last 3 years, but it's worth noting that where we are today is pretty much where we were about 12, 13 years ago and the decades before that. And that is in joining the community in a partnership to support our schools by developing a budget that requires the taxpayers to vote on the tax levy increase that's necessary to fulfill that budget. Over the time period between 2010 and 2022, we were under the law. We operated under the law that moved the school elections to November and thus eliminated the requirement for a school budget vote as long as we did not increase that tax levy beyond 2%. As we all unfortunately recall from a few years ago, we hit the point where a 2% increase on our revenues, our tax levy revenues at that, just would not be sufficient in being able to manage the experiences and the programs and the salaries and utilities and transportation and everything else that goes along with educating students in 2023, 2024, and beyond. So where we are today is in the position where the Board of Education develops a budget in concert with the administration. The Board of Education owns the responsibility of adopting and approving a base budget now that still falls in the line of that tax levy cap and makes sure that anything outside of that tax levy cap now becomes the responsibility of the taxpayers to vote on. And we'll go into more details about that. Now, recognizing that this is a staff budget presentation, I do want to highlight the same priorities that we have for our community are no different than our priorities for our staff. And that is to make sure that our priorities focus on the student experience, which obviously has an impact on the work of our staff, whether it be office staff, support staff, administrators, teachers, education specialists. Our focus continues to be on providing our students with a thorough and efficient education and making sure that we develop budgets that will prioritize their achievements and their outcomes, prioritize the offerings and opportunities for students. But over the last couple of years, we're also looking to grow on that and expand our opportunities for our students and for our schools. And in doing so, we've added this year an additional priority that attends to the facility needs. And when I speak about the facility needs, we're talking about the facilities both inside and outside our schools, our buildings and our grounds. Now, if you recall, a couple months back, we engaged the entire school community, staff, students, as well as parents, in a new experience called a thought exchange. And as you recall, the thought exchange invited members of the school community to answer this one question: what areas should be prioritized to enhance the educational experience and well-being of our students? And in asking that question, I'm thrilled that we had such an amazing response with over 1,500 participants, both engaging in the thought exchange by contributing thoughts, but also by rating those thoughts. We were really able to come up with an opportunity to hear the voice of the community in a fashion that I think was loud and clear. And as you could see from this word cloud, that prioritizes and emphasizes those items that are most frequently or most highly rated, a focus on topics such as facilities, kindergarten, paraprofessionals, and curriculum and education, certainly, and probably not surprisingly to anyone who's watching today, became our priority and our focus. So over the next several slides, we're going to go into a little more granular detail as to what makes up our school budget, and in particular, what makes up the responsibility of the base budget that the board approves, and what will make up the additional funding proposal that the taxpayers of Westfield will vote on. As you see here, the item in blue represents that portion of the tax levy that is approved by the Board of Education to the maximum allowable level. And in this case, you see it exceeds the 2% tax levy cap, which is typically the standard, because of an additional factor that was weighed into the decision, which is determined by the state, and that relates to healthcare. When healthcare increases and the state health benefits plan warrant an adjustment, that adjustment is applied to all school districts. And in that application, we were able to increase our tax levy, our maximum tax levy, from 2% to 2.62%. And why is that important? That's important because that allows the base budget to assume that much more of the expenditures necessary to run our school district. And that includes the staff, that includes the supplies, that includes the services, transportation, that includes everything that's necessary, or attempts to include everything that's necessary to run our schools. But you'll notice that we also have a red portion. That red portion represents those additional items that do not fit into the blue portion. And those additional items of our budget that don't fit into the blue portion require the public to vote on it in order for it to be included into next year's budget. In this case, what we refer to that is as educational continuity. We want to make sure that everything that we can provide today, we can continue to provide next year. That's building on the work of our curriculum writers and our folks who are developing programs and opportunities for students, as well as the existing individuals who are our coaches, our advisors, and our band directors or choral directors. We want to continue to provide those opportunities for our students, but to do so, it all doesn't fit into that blue base budget. So the green items that you see listed there start to fall into that category of the expansion of our programs and opportunities. Those priorities that allow us to grow our district certainly require both human resources, but as well, we need the fiscal resources to be able to accommodate the inclusion of those individuals into our budget. So when you see a red and green portion of this bar chart, they represent those portions of the budget that do not fit into the base budget and are in addition to what is in the base budget. So the red and the green are both necessary to receive. We need voter approval on both of those items for those to exist in the 24-25 school year. So in the base budget, I'll run through this quickly because I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but the base budget includes all that I shared before. All the current programming, no adjustments or cuts to visual or performing arts or athletics. The work that we're doing around curriculum writing, professional development, the work we're doing for MTSS and the development of a tiered system of supports that started this year and is going to continue next year, along with the expansion of everything from the use of data and the resources we have to support our use of data and access to curriculum. We've also included in our base budget upgrades to technology and technology equipment, as well as a line item that starts to look at, when we look back at our thought exchange, look at ways that we could impact our facilities just through the updating of the furniture and items that we have in our classrooms, so that our students and our staff are able to learn in the most conducive environment possible. It's something that can't happen all at once, but certainly can happen over time. And by adding a line item now for replacing classroom furniture, it allows us each year to take a chunk out of that need across the school district. So we're very excited about that. And then we also see the addition of instructional media center materials that we are now able to also include as an additional resource, as well as line items to support staff wellness. In our strategic plan, goal number 2 and objective number 4 highlights the importance of focusing not just on student wellness, but staff wellness, ensuring that all of our students are able to enjoy the benefit of a workforce of teachers and administrators and support staff and office staff who are equally supported in their personal, social, and emotional wellness. So we want to be able to develop programs and program supports to help them manage the stress, the anxiety, and become more resilient in their ability to work as members of our school community. And then last but not least, in our base budget, we're also pleased to start to reimagine how we provide services by exploring opportunities to deliver services in-house and in district that are currently not in existence. So we currently have 2 programs, our MD program as well as our ERI program that exists at the elementary level, that unfortunately do not have a home in our intermediate schools. So as a result, in order to service those needs, many of those students often have to be educated outside of the district. By creating these 2 special education in-district programs, it allows us to continue to build on the work of our elementary schools, allowing our students to learn and interact with their peers while having the appropriate services available to them. That's very exciting for us as it continues to build the continuum and articulation of services from the elementary, middle, and high school levels. Now we move into the realm of educational continuity, that red portion. Now that red portion, as I mentioned, are all the parts of the budget that do not fit into the base budget. And in this case, what that represents is that the amount of money that is equivalent to 0.59% of the tax levy is equivalent to 7 staff members. 3 elementary, 2 intermediate, and 2 high school teacher salaries would equate to that 0.59%. And you'll notice that they're very general. We don't identify grade levels. We don't identify content areas. We don't even identify schools beyond what is, identifiable through that listing there. And in part because we still have the rest of the school year to take into account any changes in enrollments, sections, retirements, or resignations that would potentially impact whether or not we simply do not fill those positions or whether or not it would impact someone individually. So I want to, certainly be mindful of everyone who's watching, any member of our staff, that this certainly does not underestimate the importance of these 7 individuals or any member of our teaching staff or our teaching community. But it just acknowledges that the challenge of developing budgets and developing a budget for a school district with these tax levy caps, unfortunately, directly impacts the largest part of our expenditures, which is our human resources. So this is not a doom and gloom presentation. This is actually a partnership opportunity for us. And we are very hopeful and grateful to our community and how they supported us last year, not only with the addition of our counselors, academic support teachers, but also the expansion of our ESL staff as well. So that the fact that our schools need this and our community supported it is something that we hope to continue moving forward. But now we get into the enhancements. The additional spending proposal also includes not just those additional items in red that are necessary to continue the experience from this year, but also these additional items that you'll see listed here. In the next four slides, we'll highlight what's included in that additional 0.9% increase the tax levy. The first two pages, or the next two slides, focus on creating an enrichment for all approach to improving our educational opportunities for our students at the elementary, intermediate, and high school. Last year, as you recall, we mentioned we focused on academic supports for students who may need some remedial or targeted interventions. But we also want to recognize that the opportunities for enrichment present the same challenges and needs for our students, so that not everyone has the opportunity to engage in enrichment experiences through gifted and talented if they don't qualify. But it doesn't mean that we don't have the need or opportunity to create those experiences for all students. So through this additional spending proposal, we are proposing the addition of 3 elementary enrichment teachers who will work with their colleagues to deliver experiences across the 6 elementary schools and the 1 early childhood learning center. We're also looking at the intermediate level and the high school to also look at the enhancement of enrichment experiences, but that generally takes place through course offerings versus a separate class or special per se. So at the secondary level, our focus will be on looking at our existing course offerings and figuring out ways that we can enhance those course offerings to give students those enrichment experiences. At the intermediate level, we'll be working with our existing staff to be able to create programs over the next year that will hopefully be implemented in the subsequent year. Whereas at the high school, we'd be looking at adding an additional teacher at the high school so that existing teachers would have more flexibility to provide courses in the areas you see listed there: robotics, food nutrition, home systems technology, and others such as that. So across the board, what we're looking to do is just supplement and add to the existing curriculum and curricular offerings an enrichment experience that all students have the ability to have access to. In addition, the next 2 slides highlight the other items in that green portion. The other items include adding an additional supervisor to help support the creation of those 2 in-house programs, but also the continuation of the support for our existing in-house programs. So by having a targeted support system at the elementary and now also at the secondary level, we could use 2 individuals to accomplish what 1 person has done historically over the past several years, recognizing that that support comes directly to the program deliverers, the teachers, aides, and related service providers, but it also provides us the opportunity for our supervisors to provide additional supports to the administrators and teachers to help our students in the classroom at the tier 1 level as well as beyond. We also look at an additional proposal that somewhat relates to the one I just mentioned, insofar as it's specific to enhancing the supports necessary to deliver our in-house programming needs in our special education classes. And in doing so, we want to recognize the challenges we face in trying to find and fill and retain high-quality professionals and high-quality paraprofessionals for particular areas in our program. So by adding a line item to enhance the compensation for paraprofessionals who fill those hard-to-find positions, we hope to be able to really compensate and maintain those individuals in our district so that we can continue to provide those services continuously throughout the year for our students. And then lastly, included in that green portion, included in the additional proposals, we look to provide support to our buildings and grounds department through the addition of an assistant supervisor who will manage both custodial and maintenance projects to allow our existing maintenance staff and custodial staff to continue to maintain our facilities. 10 facilities, well, really 11 when you count Elm Street, as well as the numerous outdoor spaces, requires a lot of coordination and a lot of oversight. So having that additional supervisor along with 2 additional groundskeepers really expands the opportunities for us to be able to maintain our buildings and grounds through a dedicated in-house team. And what this also means is that our custodians will have the opportunity to focus their primary work on the inside, so that our grounds team will be able to focus their work on the outside. To do it with our existing staff is impossible. To add additional staff certainly increases our capacity and makes that possible. So we're hoping to see that come to fruition through this additional funding proposal. And then last but not least, what you also see is the addition of 3 part-time school safety and security personnel as members of the intermediate and high schools. You're intimately familiar with the school resource officers that exist at the secondary level through our partnership and shared responsibility with the Westfield Police Department. However, at the elementary level, we don't have that dedicated presence. Rather, we are fortunate to have the benefit of our Westfield PD patrolling all of our schools on a regular basis, to both be inside and outside presence throughout the course of the day, week, and year. We also have the addition of our school security specialist, Frank Padovano, who's also been integral in being able to help to cultivate a culture of safety and security, but also to be that extra set of eyes and ears and that visible presence throughout the day, as well as during drop off and pickup whenever possible. But by adding part-time personnel, we're able to increase that presence throughout the course of the day. Obviously, with 3 individuals, they're going to be shared across the schools, but increasing that presence certainly way more than we have now. And I also want to highlight that this addition also allows us to look at that additional resource as not only serving us during the day, but also in the after hours. So when we have concerts or PTO events or athletic events that require additional supervision and security, we have the ability to tap into these resources, so that these individuals who will work for us, they will likely have law enforcement background, but be retired law enforcement professionals, but they will work for us and certainly have greater flexibility in our ability to use them to meet our security needs. So all of those things, everything that I just went over the last 4 slides, are included in that green portion, and the 7 teachers that I mentioned earlier are included in the red. And together, all of that represents the portion of the budget for next year that the school community will vote on. So at this time, I'd like to hand it over to Patty Ramos, our school business administrator, to go through some of the dollars and cents. Patty?
Hello, everyone. Now we get to the exciting slides, the numbers. So as Ray went over, there's 2 buckets, if you will, to the money. The first column all the way to the left, the 131 million, that's what the Board of Education voted on already and is approved to move forward for next year. The column in the middle, the 1.675 million, is what Ray presented on the last 4 slides. All the additions plus the continuity, the 7 staff members to keep them in, are all being voted on next Tuesday. So the only thing that taxpayers or people that live in Westfield will see on the ballot next week is the 1.675 million. That's a change from last year. The state changed the rules this year and said that the Board of Education could once again, even in April, vote on the budget at cap or adjusted cap and move forward. And the only thing that taxpayers need to vote on is that additional spending proposal. The part of the rule that did not change was that the additional spending proposal, if it's voted down, we cannot bring it back for a year. So if it does not get approved next week, we will not be able to fund anything that Ray went over in the red or the green. And as you can see in here, the local tax levy is what supports our budget. Ray, you can go to the next slide because the pie chart, I think, shows it a little bit better.
Yep. Hold on.
So as you can see here, the majority of the budget is funded by the local tax levy. That is normal in districts like Westfield. If you went to one of the cities, this would be flipped, and that darker blue would be state aid. It's just the way the funding works in New Jersey. Even with the increase, and we did receive an increase in state aid this year of over $800,000, that amounts to only 5.66% of our budget. And I'd like to highlight that when we started this budget process, we had almost 19 current staff members in the additional spending proposal. We were over capped by that much. as we got the healthcare adjustment and then the additional state aid, we were able to move more of the current staff members back into the base budget that the Board of Education voted on the week before last. So that was our priority when we were building the budget, was to keep as many current staff members in the base budget. And as you can see, the other pieces of the budget are really just the other revenues that we get. Student activity fees are small. Our interest, even though interest rates are doing well right now, we can't budget for that. We don't know where that's going to go in the next year. So what we do is any money that we get in addition to what's budgeted here, we put that into capital reserve. And that's where you see our projects, such as the one, the beautiful work that's being done over at Roosevelt. I know everyone that works there loves the scaffolding. But that's where that money goes. So it's our savings fund, but what it does is it helps in future years where we're not having to cut other things because of work like that has to be done. So it's important that we're able to maintain that too each year. Now we moved into the expenditures, and which makes sense. So when you look at the other side, that the majority of the money is our salary and our benefits. That is what we do. We have teachers and students. The additional spending proposal, as you can see, the $1.6 million is composed completely of salary and benefits, because as Ray went through, it's all those additional staff members and the 7 current staff members. There's nothing else in that additional spending proposal. And it's important to note, whatever you put in the additional spending proposal, if it's a 1-year purchase, so technology purchase, furniture purchase, it only increases the budget for that 1 year. Staff in this additional spending proposal increase the budget going forward. So we're able to build off of that, the 2% for the following year, instead of going back down and then having to ask for it again the next year. So that's why we're very careful with where everything goes and in the budget while we're building it. Again, while maintaining the priority of keeping all current staff in that first part of the budget. That was our priority. You can see we have $4 million in capital reserve projects that we budgeted. That will be our, there's HVAC, but don't get too excited. It's for the technology, the IDF rooms where the servers are located. A lot of you, if you go into them, or they're located in teacher rooms at some point, the heat from them is a lot, and they should have been air conditioned when they were put in. So that's going to be one of our capital reserve projects. The other ones are at Roosevelt School. We're going to be dividing out a room to build out for OT, PT, the SRO, and small group instruction. And then we're going to be revamping that whole wood shop area right now. And I think it's really going to be something nice when it's all said and done. But again, that's from the savings that we get over the years on additional revenues that come in, and anything that's left over in the budget. A budget our size, there's always going to be hopefully some money left over at year end. You never want to be in the position where there's not money left over. And it all goes back into the budget in that way, in capital reserve or maintenance reserve projects. And then if you go to the next slide, you'll see that this is the breakout again of how the money's spent. Salary and benefits, that this is very similar to other districts in New Jersey. Salaries and benefits are going to be your biggest portion of it, and then you're going to see a bunch of other stuff that is mandated to be provided. And anything mandated also cannot be put into that additional spending proposal. So I can't put transportation, out of district tuition, our outside providers and consultants, most of that is for special education with IEPs. I can't put any of that into an additional spending proposal. That all has to be in the main part of the budget. But if you went to any other districts in the state, this would look very similar to them. The majority of the money is spent on the salaries of our staff. And then, transportation costs have risen significantly in the last 5 years. They're starting to balance out, but we're just not there yet. And again, we are constantly looking at ways to reduce that, possibly bring things more in-house in the next few years, which I think would be a big relief to a lot of people in the buildings with how transportation runs too. So we are always looking for ways to help out. We're in the process of doing a local government energy audit to see if there's any cost savings we can do there. We upgraded to LED lighting throughout the district. You've seen that we've gone through and done our facilities audit. We're looking at what's wrong. We're trying to address situations, even putting the furniture back into the budget. These are things that have been in rotation in budgets for districts like Westfield and the same demographics for years. but it was just cut here over the years because of the budget crisis that we were in. Now, given the fact that we can vote, we can start to really address these issues, because they are issues. It affects how students learn. It's important to be able to maintain not just the staff, but where the staff are working and the conditions. So we really are taking a good look at all of that, and we're listening to everything that everyone's saying. So if you go to the next slide, the potential tax impact for next year. So the tax impact at the adjusted cap is $182 for the average taxpayer in Westfield. The additional spending proposal represents another $165 for a total impact of $347 to the average taxpayer in Westfield. What you'll notice is the 4.11%. What that represents is a 2% increase. It's the increase over the tax levy from the prior year. It doesn't equate to what the average taxpayer in Westfield is actually going to pay. What they're going to pay is, it really comes out to be about 3.6% instead of the 4.11%, because it's based on ratables. Ratables are the total taxable value of land in Westfield. And as that goes up, that money gets distributed to the people that are paying taxes. We cannot take any of that. So I know there's a misconception that if they built something, we would automatically get 2% of whatever new development came in. That's not the case. That money goes back into the pot and redistributed so that taxpayers pay less. So we don't get any increases. We're only allowed to build off of the prior year tax levy. You can go to the next slide. And here again is the bar graph that we show. So what's important to highlight is what's in the blue on the left has already been approved by the Board of Education, and that's our base budget. We're already starting to work on that. We had meetings this morning about things that we're doing that were already approved and moving forward. What's in the red and green is what will be voted on next Tuesday, that 1.675 million. That's what we're waiting on for next Tuesday, but we are ready to go, and we're very hopeful that Westfield will support the budget. Now, if you go to the next slide, this is the actual additional spending proposal, the ballot language. It's quite lengthy. And as you can see, Ray made it a little more user-friendly, and he did the red and green in there. So the red is the portion of the budget that's supporting the 7 teachers for the educational continuity. And then the green is all of the additions that we're adding into that, into the spending proposal for the total of the 1.675 million. The last 2 sentences are required to be put into the ballot language, basically saying that approval of the taxes will result in a permanent increase to the tax base, which I had said before, which means that our 2% will be based off of the entire budget, including this 1.675 next year. And the last one just says that the proposed additions are in addition to those necessary to achieve New Jersey student learning standards, which again, I had mentioned, we cannot put anything mandated by the state into this additional spending proposal.
So as we approach next Tuesday, you'll notice that the timeline represented here has already been completed in part through the March 26th budget vote by the Board of Education, who, as I mentioned, approved the base budget. And all those items that I referenced in the base budget, because they're approved, they're green lighted and ready to go. And they also approved the additional funding proposals, those red and green items that will be presented to the taxpayers on April 16th. Recognizing that all the attendees today may be residents of Westfield or not residents of Westfield, it's still important that everyone understands what goes into this budget and what we are asking for of our community to support. And in essence, what we're asking them to support is the fully funding of our school district, and not just to the bare minimum, but really to the point where we are growing and building upon the work of all of our staff, all of our teachers, all of our administrators, and all of our office and support staff who work day in and day out to be able to give our students the greatest opportunities possible. That is the commitment that we've established through those priorities. That's the commitment that we discussed in committee meetings and board meetings. And I'm very proud at the ability to develop a budget and present a budget to all of you, as well as this community that represents not just a commitment, but really the dollars and cents to back it up with. So we're approaching the end of the presentation. I do want to open it up to any members of the board who would like to contribute any additional thoughts. As well, welcome Rob Bonaccio, our board vice president, who joined us as on the call. And in the meantime, as any board members are sharing comments, if any members of the staff would like to insert a question into the Q&A, we could certainly speak about any responses from there. So any board members want to add anything?
I want to add, thank you for that comprehensive review of the budget, so that I hope the staff sees what we're planning and what's available to them and what we're hoping to move forward into the future. And I just hope everybody comes out and votes. So please encourage any in-town residents and Westfield teachers that are in town to come out and vote and support our budget. And at this point, I actually have to drop off. So I just wanted to say thank you all for coming, and thank you. I will see you later.
Thank you, Sonal.
Yeah, so I just wanted to echo what Sonal said. Patty, Ray, thank you for this presentation. We've heard it many times as board members, but every time I listen to it, I'm like, oh, there's another thing I didn't really catch the first time. So I think being someone who works in the district, and we're going through similar strategic planning and budget processing in my district as well. I think sometimes you miss things the first time, second time, fifth time. So I just wanted to encourage anyone in attendance, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to either your school administrators or the Elm Street office, or any of the board members. Well, maybe you're not allowed to do that, but you can. Just if you need any clarification, because I think the more times this is kind of gone over is it's really helpful from our perspective.
I'll add in as well. I mean, obviously, I want to thank our district administration for putting together a great budget and for educating the board on things that are important. But I also want to make sure I thank the staff, those in attendance, and the rest. This process began some time ago, and my guess, even though we're pretty close to the end of a budget process, next year's is going to start probably sooner than we all think. Not that I want to get too far there, but what comes out of this process starts very early, and it starts with many of you as staff members, expressing your thoughts about how we grow as a district, getting that word up to supervisors, having those supervisors meet with all of you, and submitting to the district exactly the plans that you think are necessary for our students not to thrive and to grow. So we don't get here to any of these things, to any of these additional proposals, this ability to grow as a district and not just run in place, without the hard work you're putting in to begin with our students, but also with the work and the added time you put in to actually highlight these points and commit to the growth that we're funding here. So really my thanks is to all of you for being part of our children's education, and for taking what will hopefully be an increase and doing the great things with it that you always have.
Thank you, Rob, Layla, and Sonal. Again, it's been an amazing collaborative experience, and I greatly appreciate the trust and support that we've received from the Board of Education, really deferring to us to determine what the needs are, and to help structure the priorities, but through ongoing dialogue about where we are as a district and where we need to go. And building off that, the question that was listed in the Q&A that I see references our 5-year strategic plan, and specifically wondering if there's any talk of expanding special education services, such as more full-time inclusion services being offered at the elementary level. And it's a great question, and I think a great way for us to make the connection between what we are doing both this year and in the future, between our budget and our strategic plan. If you look at our strategic plan, goal number 1 is the goal that's focused on deepening the learning experiences for our students. So when we focus on a goal that is academically student oriented, what we're looking at are multiple objectives, but one of which focuses on broadening academic opportunities and support for all learners. And certainly that can encompass so many different areas of our work, from our multilingual learners to our students with special needs, to our gifted learners, to our remedial learners, to our regular learners, our general education learners who may not necessarily fit into a category per se, but are still in need of supports and opportunities to enrich their experiences and support them. So that is the long answer to the question, does the plan talk about expanding special education services? The answer is yes. And as a result of that being a focal point, we knew that when presented with the opportunity to expand our in-house special education programs from the middle to the high school, we were able to make that direct connection back to our strategic plan goal and objective. Our opportunity to then build upon that, as mentioned earlier, is also including those additional supports that would help us get there. So by adding an additional supervisor increases our capacity to start working with our teachers, start working with our school community, to look at our data, to look at our resources, to see how we could continue to expand those offerings, whether it be through in-class support, through cooperative teaching and co-teaching models. Any of those opportunities are certainly within the realm of possibility for us if we equip ourselves with the necessary resources to do so. So those resources come in the form of human resources to make sure I have the right people in the right places to have these conversations so that they could present those programs, proposals, professional development, or needs that would make their way into future budgets. So the longer answer is that the strategic plan affords that opportunities, and we will hopefully see that grow with each passing budget. I don't see any other questions in the Q&A, so the one thing that I'll do is just add 2 additional questions that we often get that haven't been asked in this case. And they generally piggyback off of one another, which is, what about this referendum that we've heard about, and what about full-day kindergarten? So full-day kindergarten and the referendum are also directly tied to our strategic plan and represent those items that are beyond the scope of a district operating budget. When you look at what it would take to make significant facility improvements, when you look at what it takes to be able to add the staff and the facilities necessary to implement full-day kindergarten, you would not be able to do so simply by adding a couple of percentage points to a tax levy. So the commitment of this Board of Education and Administration is to engage in further inquiry, discussion, and proposals so that by this time next year, we will be presenting both a base budget, any additional funding proposals, as well as a facilities bond referendum to address those needs. Again, it's often a question that comes to us, which as members of the staff, you may get as well. So I do want to just highlight that it is not included in this budget, but will be a future opportunity for the taxpayers to weigh in within about a year's time. And more to come on that later. Okay, we are officially at 4:30. I think this is the quickest presentation I've done, which means that either we've anticipated as many questions as possible, or our participants are ready to close out their day. So let me just end by thanking all of you, both the board members, Patty, Marianne McGann, for all of their support and cooperation in bringing us this presentation today, and also to all the interested attendees who joined us. We recognize this is on your time that you joined us, so we do want to thank you for taking the time and interest. Feel free to reach out to myself or Patty with any specific questions you have. But as mentioned before, we're not in a position where we could tell people how to vote, but we are certainly in a position where we could encourage people to go out and vote and exercise their responsibility as partners in this to be able to cast their vote on the school budget as well as this school board election. So on that note, I want to thank you all, wish you all a great night, and look forward to a positive outcome next week. Take care, everybody.